Part 42. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 412. Why don't you get familiar with them? That's what suits you, seeing Wu Yu catching up with her, Luo Bin asked softly. Wu Yu smiled and did not answer. Of course, it's okay not to answer. Luo Bin could understand from his smile. For them, Yan Palace is not far from Kishan Camp. She has become more reserved recently. She has probably recovered a little, so she is better at hiding her identity as a fairy beast. If I meet her now, I might not be able to recognize her, Ming Tong said in surprise. It was probably to prepare for entering the city lord's mansion. Luo Bai, don't you have any friends in Yanhuang Emperor City? I see that you have always been a loner, Wu Yu asked as he walked. I'm used to it, she said. There is indeed nothing to talk about when chatting with her, but her personality is like that, so even if she doesn't speak, it doesn't seem awkward to stand next to her. In a blink of an eye, Kishan Camp arrived, and Wu Yu said, in 5 days, I will find you again, and we will go to the ancient battlefield together. Good. It can be seen that although she doesn't speak much, at least she doesn't reject Wu Yu. Mosasaurus Camp has always been relatively deserted. It is probably because the people there also know Luo Bin's temper, so they don't bother her much, but carry out their own tasks. Occasionally, if they ask Luo Bin some questions about cultivation, she will still answer them. What a strange person. Wu Yu sighed with emotion and returned to Kishan Camp first. In fact, many people from Kishan Camp also went to show Wu Yu the Yan battle ranking. Wu Yu came back first, and they came back not long after. Commander Wu, listen to my analysis. I have roughly calculated what opponents you will encounter if you want to reach the top 3, Wu Tianyu and others said excitedly as soon as they returned. Look, the first opponent, this one named Yang Suifeng, is the most likely to make it to the qualifying round. 70% of the time it is him. To defeat this Yang Suifeng, the second opponent should be this old man Puang Ai, an old monster in the Yanhuang Emperor City. Before our ancestors were born, he was already a centurion. He has many tricks and is very cunning. However, I still believe that Commander Wu can defeat him. As for the third one, it should be Li Kahai. This will be difficult to deal with. Everyone began to frown. It is said that this guy is also very strong physically. Although he is not as strong as Commander Wu, his own realm is the 3rd level of Zifu Kanghai realm. In a few years, Commander Wu will be able to reach the 3rd level of the Purple Mansion Kanghai realm. He will definitely be suppressed by then, but it's hard to say now. When facing these powerful young people, even the brothers in Kishaning find it difficult, let alone others. In the next 5 days, the ancient battlefield is holding a qualification battle, which is said to be quite exciting. 12 people are fighting for 3 places to participate in the official battle. This qualification battle has a lot to do with Wu Yu, because the first opponent needs to be fought out from the qualification battle. But Wu Yu didn't care much. In order to win the top 3, he still made some preparations. It is too late to break through and learn realms, Taoism, etc. Talismans are not allowed to be used, and the only way is to sacrifice and refine magic weapons. Wu Yu thought for a moment. Now that he had a lot of money, he was still going to buy 2 swords. Although the swordsmanship came from Shushan, this was not the reason for him to abandon it. After all, his enlightenment on swords came from the Tongtian sword section. 2 swords. Now he can either exchange it in Yanhuang Emperor City, or go to the Yungziao Temple to buy it. Wu Yu thought about it. The discount offered by Yungziao Temple was relatively large, but there were still more choices in Yanhuang Emperor City, so he planned to first look here. A qualification battle was going on in the outer city, and Wu Yu came to the magic weapon warehouse in the inner city. This is the largest magic weapon warehouse in the entire Divine Continent. There are several generals in charge, and General Jinluan is the guard this time. Yes, but it doesn't happen often. Wu Yu, unexpectedly, Jiangsu Echwen was also here. I'm going to choose some magic weapons, Wu Yu said. What a coincidence, I'm on duty here recently. If you need anything, I'll take you there directly. Sword. Wu Yu's purpose was clear. Although there are not as many swords here as the Xuanhuan Immortal sect, they are still very good. Come with me. Jiangsu Echwen knew that he was preparing for the Yanzhan, so he was also very concerned. The sword has a separate sword palace. About how much merit? Jiangsu Echwen asked. Wu Yu now has the equivalent of more than 3 million in merit. He has always been very generous in this regard. If he doesn't want it, he won't want it. If he wants it, it has to be about the same as Yanhuang Optimus Prime, so he said, about 1 million, I want to. 1 million. Yanzhen's top 3 are 5 million, 3 million, and 1 million meritorious deeds respectively. Wu Yu's sword points to the top 3, and he is not polite here. When practicing together, he always believed that all resources must be the best. There are not many choices for such expensive ones, but there is no doubt that they are all very powerful. Ordinary Xuanhuan heavenly sword level swords may not be affordable. After all, Wu Yu only managed to collect 3 million merits in the Battle of East China Sea, spending 3 months desperately killing 3 opponents and thousands of ghost cultivators. Jiangsu Echwen directly took Wu Yu to the collection room deep in the sword palace. The door opened, and the sword energy inside was soaring. The interior was a treasure-forged hall. There were more than 300 swords hanging on the walls, some big and small, of all kinds. When Wu Yu walked in, all of them were instantly the sword trembled crazily and made a harsh sound, like a wild beast unwilling to be restrained. Wu Yu felt as if he had stepped into the Tongtian Immortal Palace of the Tongtian Sword Sect for the first time. Take your pick. The long swords here are worth 500,000 to 1.5 million merit. This chapter is not over, please click on the next page to continue reading. It can be seen that none of them are worse than Yanhuang Optimus Prime. There are thousands of magic weapon arrays on each one, which is perfect. Even most of them have direct attack magic weapon arrays attached inside. In swordsmanship, the only mysterious art of heaven and earth that Wu Yu knows is the Xianxian shocking sword art. For him now, this sword art is not very strong. No matter how noisy the environment is, he still has to spend 2 million merit, so he is calm and calm. He can see every sword in great detail, including its forger, year, and the arrangement and efficacy of each magic circle. Chew. Of course, what you can see most clearly is the price. Also, he needs 2 swords that can cooperate with each other. Today, he has indeed discovered that the immortal root of yin-yang sword will is so effective. Others can only control 1 sword at the same time, but he can control 2. What to choose? Wu Yu had a headache. After knowing Wu Yu's needs, Jiangsu Echwen smiled and said, since you need 2 swords like this, based on my understanding of this place, I will introduce these 2 swords to you. It is absolutely right. Come with me. At this time, Wu Yu had looked at about 200 swords, and he still didn't have the 2 most satisfactory choices, so Jiangsu Echwen pulled the sword directly back until he stood in front of the 2 adjacent swords. Wu Yu looked up and saw that the 2 swords were exactly the same. They are all 3-foot green blades, the swords are 2 fingers wide and extremely sharp. On both sides of the sword blade, one is engraved with the magnificent mountains and rivers of Shenzhou, and the other side is engraved with the sun, moon, and stars in the sky. The style of the 2 swords is very retro, obviously very old, and even has a dusty feel. Of course, there is still the biggest difference between these 2 swords. One of them is pure gold and looks like it is made of gold. Of course, its material is not as simple as gold, it is just the shape of gold. The other one is pure black, as if made of black iron, as black as ink. Black and gold again. The mixture of these two colors represents the Yanhuang Emperor city. The black ancient sword was swallowing black flames invisibly, while the golden ancient sword contained sharp golden light. Zhang Xuanhuan introduced, the two swords were forged at the same time. It seems to be very long ago, at least more than 200,000 years old. At that time, there were not many magic weapons circulating to this day. It is also true that the magic weapon array on them there are some differences from the current one. However, because they happen to be a pair, it is said that they can show the strongest power when working together, so I think it is suitable for you. After all, they are not very powerful if they are worshipped separately. As for the price, it is considered cheap here. After all, not many people can control such an ancient sword, and no one wants to be distracted by using two swords at the same time, so it is not expensive, and the total merit is only 1.5 million. If you can use them to the highest degree, you might have 3 million meritorious effects. Wu Yu listened to him while communicating with the two swords carefully. The lines on the blade are indeed very ancient. These two swords are like old men who have traveled through history and come to this era. That's it, Wu Yu Minglong said. These two swords are older than her. She came from before 1 yuan, more than 120,000 years ago. According to the written introduction, these two swords are the least. The forger is unknown, and the specific power is not stated. The last owner was tens of thousands of years ago. The only thing that is clear is the name of the two swords. The golden one is named Dihong. The black one is called Dikui. Judging from the names, it is obvious that they were forged at the same time, or in other words, they were forged by one person. There is relatively little specific information about these two swords, so you need to figure it out on your own, but if it can be placed here, as long as it suits you, there is basically no big problem. However, because the introduction is not detailed, many things need to be figured out by yourself, so there are some risks. Zhang Xuanhuan told him the pros and cons. Just pick them. Sometimes, choosing a magical weapon also depends on fate. When Wu Yu came here and saw the Emperor Hong sword and Emperor Kui sword, he had no intention of looking at other swords. Although the feeling is not as enthusiastic as when I got Yanhuang Optimus Prime, it is all because Yanhuang Optimus Prime was a timely help, and now it is the icing on the cake. However, Wu Yu is indeed calmer. Zhang Xuanhuan asked him several times if he was sure, and he was sure. After all, as long as you take it out, you won't be able to change it when you come back. Very good. After delivering 1,500 Kanghai Yuankai pills, half of the property was lost in one fell swoop. Wu Yu put the Emperor Hong sword and the Emperor Kui sword into the Sumuru bag, said goodbye to Zhang Xuanhuan, and returned to Kishan camp for retreat. After all, it is not easy to get familiar with and control these two swords in such a short period of time. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 413. Knowing that Wu Yu wanted to refine the magic weapon, the Yanhuang Immortal army from Kishan camp did not bother him. They went to watch the qualifying matches every day, and then recorded the details and prepared to show them to Wu Yu before he played. In the qualification battle alone, it is said that countless people poured into Yanhuang Emperor City, and the number of people in the entire outer city suddenly doubled. This is simply a pilgrimage for sects from all over the world to see what true genius is. It is said that many people came from Shushan Immortal sect. This is even if the Imperial War is not taking place in the outer city. It would be even more incredible if the Imperial War was also held in the outer city. It is said that the outer city is now overcrowded. If they had not been members of the Yanhuang Immortal army, it would not have been easy for them to squeeze into the ancient battlefield. However, Wu Yu didn't care about this. He was calm. After returning to Kishan camp, he went into seclusion directly. He held the Emperor Hong sword in one hand and the Emperor Kui sword in the other. He divided his mind into two tasks and went to sacrifice at the same time. Refining these two super spiritual weapons. Actually, let me tell you, these two swords are too old, and many of the magic formations have dissipated. Otherwise, they are stronger, and they may be approaching Taoist tools. Maybe they were Taoist tools in the past, but their structures were destroyed. Minglong crossed his arms and looked very knowledgeable. Is it possible to restore it to its original state? Wu Yu asked. It's unlikely, unless their forger comes out to repair those magic weapon arrays, which is unlikely, and even if there are people with similar attainments as that forger now, I guess I can't fix it because of the difference between ancient and modern magic arrays. In this way, it is actually not much different from other swords in the Sword Palace. There are still benefits. For example, the materials of these two swords are treasures with 6 spiritual lines. This is the material for making Taoist tools. It also has a bonus to attack. You can buy them at this price, which is quite good. Worth it? With that said, Wu Yu was relieved. He began to immerse himself in the two swords. Feel the rich sense of history and vicissitudes of these two super spiritual magic weapons. Maybe they haven't been used for a long time. When Wu Yu sacrificed them with blood, the two swords were still a little excited, as if they were slowly waking up from their ancient slumber, and the time when they slowly woke up was when Wu Yu sacrificed them. Time. Wu Yu felt 2 worlds. A world filled with yellow sand and swept by storms, but the yellow sand is actually gold gravel. A world is a black sea of fire, and the sea of fire is turbulent. It seems that there is a giant beast hidden in it, churning under the sea of fire, setting off red waves of fire. Perhaps because of the simultaneous sacrifices, the difficulty was not very high, and he did not experience much confrontation. Wu Yu just visualized the mental ape, and the 2 magical weapons surrendered to him. Boom. Wu Yu went to study the magic weapon arrays one by one, and then he fully understood these 2 magic weapons. Sure enough, it's a little different from today's magic weapons. For example, the Emperor Hong sword has 999 magic weapon arrays on it, just like Yanhuang Optimus Prime, but its center is not a balancing magic circle, but a direct attack magic weapon array. With attack as the center, this is basically not the case with today's magic weapons. To put it simply, this arrangement is not stable enough and is very difficult to forge. Only ancient ascetics with high skills can complete the forging. Its central magic circle was born entirely for attack, and all other magic weapon formations served this formation. The Emperor's Sword Wheel Formation. By operating this Heavenly Emperor Sword Wheel Formation, one can launch a Celestial Emperor Sword Wheel attack. Because this Celestial Emperor Sword Wheel Formation is the core of the magical weapon, it is very likely that this attack is more powerful than Yanhuang Optimus Prime's. Surrounding the Heavenly Emperor Sword Wheel Formation are 10 identical formations, called the Emperor Hong Sword Chi Formation. Wu Yu only needs to infuse the Dan Yuan into it, and the Emperor Hong Sword can directly burst out the Emperor Hong Sword Chi Formation. Chi to defeat the enemy. The same principle applies, but the central formation of the Emperor Kuei Sword is the Ghost Fire Heart-Eating Sword Formation. It is not as domineering as the Heavenly Emperor Sword Wheel, but it is ruthless, cold-blooded, fiery, and probably also very scary. There are also 10 Emperor Kuei Sword Chi formations around it. If you flip it over, you can release the Emperor Kuei Sword Chi. The Emperor Hong Sword Chi is a sharp golden light. The golden light is extremely dazzling and possesses terrible destructive power. The penetrating power is simply full. If you wave it casually, the Dao Emperor Hong Sword Chi will pierce through at a terrifyingly fast speed. Emperor Kuei's sword energy is not weak either. The sword energy burns black flames. Although it is not fast, once it is stabbed, the flames spread throughout the body and it has continuous lethality. Holding these 2 swords, Wu Yu knew that he had more attack methods. If he switched with Yanhuang Optimus Prime and others, his various methods of defeating enemies would make it difficult for his opponents to study him. However, the top priority is to quickly become familiar with the Emperor's sword formation and the Wisp's fire heart-eating sword formation. He had been familiar with the Yan Emperor's heaven opening formation and the Huang Emperor's earth opening formation for a long time. Now that he didn't have much time, Wu Yu estimated that these two swords would be useless in the first battle. In 5 days, I have somewhat understood the basic operations of the Emperor's sword wheel formation and the Wisp's fire heart-eating sword formation. The attack array on the magic weapon is the easiest attack to learn. It is much simpler than the mysterious technique of heaven and earth, but there is no heaven and earth. Mystic arts are so diverse. If we try to force it now, since we still haven't completely figured it out yet, there will probably be some confusion. But Wu Yu had to leave because the time for Yan's first battle had come. At dawn that day, the city outside Yanhuang Emperor City was boiling like never before. As soon as Wu Yu came out, all the brothers and sisters from Kishan camp were all here, looking at Wu Yu excitedly. "Commander Wu, your opponent has been decided, and it is indeed the guy named Yang Suifeng. Listen to me, this Yang Suifeng is not easy to deal with. He has a relatively low background. He is an ordinary hunter in a mortal fairyland. His parents are both hunters. However, he was killed by a demon during a hunting trip, and he was led by a wild beast. Big, if he is very fierce, he got an immortal fate by chance, and finally joined the Yanhuang immortal army. However, it is said that this person is full of ferocity, and he is the one who kills the most among the Yanhuang immortal army, and he also performs the most evil tasks on weekdays. Never show mercy. Now he has practiced Taoism for about 50 years and has reached the 4th level of Zifukanghai realm. He is already considered a genius." After hearing what Fang Kaokan said, the image of Yang Suifeng came to mind. For an ordinary Orion to reach this point, he is indeed quite powerful. His status in the mortal world is not as good as that of Wu Yu. This person has defeated 2 opponents in a row before he can fight with himself. Obviously, in order to achieve a higher status, he will work harder than he imagined, so today's battle may not be easy. It's time to go. Having made an appointment with Luo Ben before, Wu Yu asked everyone in Kishan camp to go to the ancient battlefield first. He went to Mosalong camp. This side of Mosasong camp was relatively clean. As soon as Wu Yu arrived at the door, Luo Ben went there alone. "Come." Her long snow-white hair floated behind her, and under the flame Huang fairy armor, she still couldn't hide her graceful figure. However, remembering that the other party was a divine dragon, Wu Yu didn't dare to look at her more. "Let's go." Luo Ben said 2 words in a calm tone, and Wu Yu quickly followed her to her left, like a little follower. "I don't like to talk. You will feel bored if you stay with me." Luo Ben turned her head and stared at Wu Yu with a pair of jewel-like eyes. "I don't like to talk too much these days." Wu Yu smiled slightly. Luo Ben took the initiative to speak at this moment. She asked, "I heard that your opponent today is called Yang Suifeng. I have seen this person before. He is quite crazy. You have to be more careful." She still cares about herself. In fact, Luo Ben is not indifferent, she is just very quiet. When she really speaks, her eyes and tone are very gentle. "Is Commander Luo confident that he will reach 16 today?" Wu Yu asked. Luo Ben nodded slightly and said, "I have gained some experience recently, so it should work." Now that the conversation had begun, Wu Yu pretended not to care and tried to test. "Yes, the Lord of Yanhuang City is the #1 person in the Divine Continent. If he can get his guidance, and it only takes half a year, he will definitely have great achievements. At this time of war, I hope we can all enter the city lord's palace." He did want to know, what was her purpose. Now that they were leaving the inner city, they saw the participants in today's war. In fact, there were many people watching and even talking about them. Surrounded by thousands of eyes and comments, Luo Ben was not affected and said, "It should be quite difficult for me. The main purpose is to compete with many geniuses and strong men. As for entering the city lord's palace, let nature take its course. Alright. If you can really enter the city lord's palace, will Commander Luo be ready to sprint to the 5th level of the Kanghai realm of Zifu? By then, I'm afraid you will be a captain of thousands, Wu Yu said. Let's talk about this later. It won't go so smoothly. Luo Ben seemed to be avoiding the details of the city lord's palace. Her concealment of herself today has gone to the extreme. I guess no one in the entire divine continent may be able to tell that she is an immortal beast. Obviously, she is prepared, and maybe she has been preparing for Yan Zhan for a long time. Minglong said. Wu Yu thought for a while. No matter what, she shouldn't be an enemy, so what is her purpose? In fact, it doesn't have much to do with him, so there is no need to worry. After leaving the outer city, the war participants had a convenient passage to the ancient battlefield without being disturbed by onlookers along the way. However, when I went outside, I saw that the Yanhuang Emperor city was extremely lively, and the people flying all over the sky were all cultivators. In the past few days, the shops in the outer city were probably doing brisk business, especially the Xiaoxian Inn. Did you see that Wu Yu, the abandoned disciple of Xuanhuan, has a woman next to him? This guy, in our Shu Mountain, was so in love with the daughter of Qiang's sword immortal Nangong Wei that he was about to become a Taoist couple. Unexpectedly, he not only immediately joined Yanhuang Emperor City and betrayed Shu Mountain, but also got close to other women. This is my first time to see such a shameless person. I really hope that one day in 2 or 3 years, Baishan Emo will kill this traitor and shameless person in Shushan and clear up the family reputation in Shushan. Wu Yu looked over and saw that the person speaking was just an ordinary Fan Dan disciple. It seems that his recent reputation has made many people in the Shushan Immortal sect unhappy. Public opinion is something that spreads all over the world. If someone talks about him, Wu Yu can't deal with one person. What he needs is to prove himself and move forward. One day, no one will dare to say anything. Luo concubine also heard it. Do you still like that Nangong Wei? She asked suddenly. Wu Yu didn't expect that she would ask such gossipy questions. He hesitated for a moment and replied, the Tao is different, so I don't have the right to talk about it anymore. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 414. Chapter 411 Trident. The immortal beast Shenlong who fell to Shenzhou must have come to Yanhuang Emperor City with some purpose, but he seemed to be slightly interested in his past affairs. Wu Yu felt flattered. However, she just asked casually. The two of them passed through the gazes of countless eyes and headed straight for the ancient battlefield in the orderly passage maintained by the Yanhuang Immortal Army. Soon, there was a huge crowd in front of us, a sea of people, both on the ground and in the sky. If it is the Yanhuang Immortal Army, you can tell it at a glance. In fact, there are not many Yanhuang Immortal Army around. There are more people from various sects and forces from the entire Shenzhou. The Yanhuang Immortal Army needs to maintain order and entertain some important guests. Wu Yu came to this ancient battlefield for the first time. He was now on the peaks surrounding the ancient battlefield. The ancient battlefield was surrounded by a ring of peaks. It was a vast valley with towering mountains, rolling rivers, and strong winds. It surges, thunder flashes, and it is said that everything inside seems to have been refined. Even ordinary stones are exceptionally hard. The Yanhuang Immortal Army was stationed around the ringed mountain range, entertaining people from some important sections as a judge. A total of 5 generals appeared here. In addition to General Qin, General Murong and General Gu, Li Kehai's adoptive father General Jinluan and Zhang Zhixun's master General Yugu both appeared here. Some sects of the 3rd or 4th level or above can only watch from a distance. The best locations around the Ring Mountain range are said to have been specially set up for Xuanhuan Immortal sect, Shangyuan Daozong, etc. It should have been specially invited by Yanhuang Emperor City. In addition to the other two giant sects of these two human races, there is also the Tianyi clan from a foreign land, and there are also many second-rate sects whose power is close to the Xuanhuan Immortal sect, such as the Gesu Fairy Peak, Martial God Tianmen, Feng Xiu Shangzong, Tian Thunder Palace, etc. The sect masters and sect leaders in these top sects are actually quite powerful, and they should be close to Xuanhuan Qiang Sword Immortal. There are even many demon spies mixed in among them. Wu Yu had just arrived here, and he and Luo Bin found the location where they were supposed to stand, and immediately found many people from the Xuanhuan Immortal section. There were about 20 people in the team, including 2 sword masters, and the others were some young disciples. It is estimated that they were brought here to observe and learn. For example, Chen Fuyu, Xiao Huanshan, etc. are all here. Among them, Xiao Huanshan has also cultivated to the Purple Mansion Kanghai realm. If Mu Lingch hadn't died, he would probably be here. Those young people were specially sent by Xuanhuan to study. Because there was a lot of noise when Wu Yu arrived, they quickly saw Wu Yu. Led by Chen Fuyu and others, they naturally looked at Wu Yu with disgust and threats. Look! If Shen Xinjiao wasn't among the 2 sword masters, Wu Yu wouldn't have thought about it. Another person is Chen Fuyu's father, Red Shadow Sword Master. Logically speaking, the Crimson Shadow Sword Master was more responsible for Mu Lingch's death, and he failed to fulfill his duty of protection. Seeing that Shen Xinjiao had also arrived, Wu Yu said something to Luo Bin and then set off towards Shen Xinjiao. Isn't Sister Shen here? Wu Yu looked around and around, but Shen Xinyu was not there. Shen Xinjiao said, after you caught up with me, she was finally willing to work hard. This time I asked her to retreat and didn't let her come. Behind Shen Xinjiao were the young disciples from Xuanhuan. They gathered together. Although they did not speak, the strong hostility in their eyes could not be concealed. The Scarlet Shadow Sword Master suddenly said, why should the Galaxy Sword Master talk too much to the Xuanhuan traitors? It won't sound good if the news spreads. Shen Xinjiao ignored him and said to Wu Yu, if you can get the guidance of the city lord, you will have a lot of luck. I was shocked when I heard that you were qualified to participate in the war. I seized the opportunity. Wu Yu nodded. Now that so many people in Xuanhuan call him a traitor, how can Shen Xinjiao start like him? Wu Yu didn't have many friends in Xuanhuan, and Shen Xinjiao was considered the best one. Go back and get ready. You'll be looked down upon here too. For many things, just remember to have a clear conscience. Shen Xinjiao patted him on the shoulder and said. Don't worry, at least I won't care about these people. Wu Yu smiled and looked behind Shen Xinjiao. When Wu Yu's eyes turned into fire, people like Xiao Huanshan could only hide. Dare to look at him. Farewell. Wu Yu cupped his hands. After that, he returned to Luo Bin under the watch of Shen Xinjiao. As soon as Wu Yu left, Chen Fuyu said, how arrogant. I can leave Xuanhuan alive and save a dog's life. I don't know how to be grateful. Now I have fallen into Baishan Mo's trap. It will not be that easy to return to Xuanhuan in 3 years. Can leave alive. Now that the matter has spread so widely, if he doesn't dare to go, his reputation will be lost by then. I don't see how he still has the nerve to hang around in the Yanhuang Emperor City. This idiot really thinks he is from Yanhuang Emperor City. How can Yanhuang Emperor City value such a traitor? A guy who cheats and cheats? Today he will betray Xuanhuan so quickly. It will be easier to betray Yanhuang Emperor City in the future. These 3 surnames house slave. Chen Fuyu babbled for a while, and then he got angry, and the others nodded frequently. Xiao Huanshan said, there are many powerful centurions in the Yanhuang Emperor City, and today they came to see Wu Yu make a fool of himself. I asked about his opponent Yang Suifeng. He is a terrible character. Wu Yu will be defeated on the spot today. If you don't believe me, just wait and see. Okay, stop talking. Don't let others hear it and say that our Xuanhuan immortal sect has no grace. Red Shadow Sword Master waved his hand and glanced at Shenzhenjiao next to him. However, Shenzhenjiao didn't care at all what these young people said. His eyes were shining with stars as he looked at the ancient battlefield without moving. This chapter is not finished yet, please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. Within an hour, all the combatants arrived. 32 combatants, all opponents, were separated and divided into two groups, one on the south side of the Ring Mountains, one on the north side of the Ring Mountains, and Wu Yu's side. 16 people. Qin Fui is not here, but Murong Su and Zhang Zhigzun are here, but the two of them are chatting and laughing together, and no outsiders can join their team. In every battle, one person from the north and one from the south will fight. For the next battle, the 16 people were separated again and divided into two preparation stations in the north and south. Standing here and looking around, there are millions of cultivators around, more than the immortal sect of Xuanhuan. This is undoubtedly the battle that has attracted the most attention in my life so far. It is worthy of being the Yanhuang Emperor's city, its momentum is more majestic than Xuanhuan Mountain. I welcome all visitors from all over the world to our Yanhuang Emperor city, my dear Murongting. Outside the ancient battlefield, an old man stood in the air with his hands behind his back. He was the famous General Murong in Yanhuang Emperor city. When General Murong said these kind words, hundreds of thousands of people immediately responded and cheered, making the scene extremely lively for a while. General Murong added, "Of course, I would also like to thank Xuanhuan Red Shadow Sword Master, Zinc Sword Master, Shangyuan Dao Sect Venerable Shen Qing, Venerable Taie, Minister Jin Chongtian of Tianyi Clan and others for coming to observe. There are at least 20 Xuanhuan Sword Master level experts gathered here." General Murong gave a brief introduction. Finally, he said, "Then, without wasting your time, I announce that the Yan War will begin from now on." The first two participants in the battle, Luo Bin and Haiyu, appeared on their own initiative. Indeed, Luo Bin is the first one today. If she survives all the way, she will be the first to fight every time. Her opponent was the same as Wu Yu's opponent. He had gone through many obstacles along the way and defeated two opponents before appearing here. She was at the northern battle preparation platform. When she read his name, she floated down and headed towards the middle of this huge ancient battlefield. Looking at it from a distance, it seems that she is also a woman, and she is also a person who loves beauty. She transformed the Yanhuang fairy armor into a sea blue dress, dotted with many gems and pearls, like a fairy from the sea, floating down. When she coming, the rivers in the ancient battlefield surged. Wu Yu forgot to ask about Luo Bin's opponent named Haiyu. Of course, there was no point in asking because he knew that Luo Bin would not lose. Luo Bin also stood up, jumped high, quickly entered the ancient battlefield, turned into an afterimage, and gradually approached the Haiyu. Because the ancient battlefield was very large, it would take some time before they met. She shuttled through the forest with a strong figure. The battle started directly, and it was the first battle. Naturally, people paid special attention to it. For a while, everyone almost held their breath and concentrated on it. Looking at these two women from Yanhuang Emperor City. The poppies in the sea are naturally more attractive than Luo Bin. Boom! The two met directly on a huge lake. For a moment, the lake water surged into the sky and swept away. In fact, when she went to fight, Wu Yu held his breath and concentrated. After all, it was the first time for him to watch Luo Bin fight with his own eyes. He saw that Luo Bin had a magic weapon in her hand. The magic weapon was very beautiful. It was sea blue all over. It was like a gemstone on the seabed. It was crystal clear and shining with stars, like a work of art. That's a trident. Generally speaking, when a woman uses such a magic weapon, she will appear particularly domineering. This is the case for Luo Bin. The aqua blue gem-like trident is about the same length as her height. She can turn it flexibly in her hand with a high degree of proficiency. To surpass Wu Yu, use a long stick. This is a Taoist weapon, but she hit it, Ming Long said firmly. Are you sure? Nonsense, my eyes are very vicious, Ming Tong said proudly. As soon as she said these words, Luo Bin seemed to have cast a kind of mysterious magic from heaven and earth. Suddenly, dark clouds gathered and it rained heavily. A large amount of rainwater fell. The entire ancient battlefield was instantly flooded with rainwater, and then the vast rainwater formed a torrent, as if it were angry. The dragon rolled, and the angry dragon became bigger and bigger, and in a blink of an eye, she and the sea were caught in it. Bang bang. Suddenly, in the field of vision of the onlookers, the ancient battlefield seemed to have turned into an ocean. This move really shocked the whole audience. Moreover, it also made it difficult for everyone to see clearly the actual battle scene. \U003% \U003E \U003C/Sente \U003E. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 415. I don't know where Luo Bin got so much water. Anyway, in the blink of an eye, the ancient battlefield and the ringed mountain range have turned into a vast ocean. Dark clouds were still forming in the sky, and heavy rain was pouring down, obscuring the view. Amidst the vast ocean and heavy rain, one could only see the rolling waves under the vast ocean, as if there were giant beasts pounding and galloping underneath. In these scenes, no one could clearly see how the two people were fighting inside, and Wu Yu had expected it. Luo Bai will not let her clone be exposed at all. But she was able to trigger such a huge scene, which also made countless onlookers tremble. She has always kept a low profile in Yanhuang Emperor City and has no reputation, so many Yanhuang Immortal Army have never seen her show her strength with their own eyes. Writing this, I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network Rightward Arrow. Now, I can only say that it shocked the whole audience. Especially to the ascetics from all over the divine continent, Luo Bin's magnificent magical power is almost like a real god in the minds of mortals. A dragon, of course, can call the wind and rain, come and go as he pleases. Ming Long was not surprised at all. Sometimes, Wu Yu really wants to see the real body of Luo Bin. He was actually quite familiar with dragons when he was in the palace. Because mortals regard dragons as the most respected ones, they have dragon robes, dragon chairs, etc. to symbolize their noble status. Young disciples from the Shushan Immortal sect, Xuanhuan Dao sect, Tianyi clan, Gasuferi Peak, martial god Tianmen and other sects also opened their mouths slightly, feeling incredible about the first battle of Yanhuang Emperor City. The strong showdown naturally brings superb viewing pleasure. Exciting, intense, and rewarding. The downpour continued until the invisible battle, which seemed to be intense, came to an abrupt end. Suddenly, the sea water all over the sky converged towards the central point of the ancient battlefield. That point was Luo Bin's body. People saw that this vast ocean was swallowed up by a person in a very short moment. In the blink of an eye, even the dark clouds and heavy rain in the sky disappeared, and the entire ancient battlefield immediately returned to normal. Luo Bin stood on the calm lake, her long snow-white hair flying, and the yellow fairy armor added a heroic aura to her. Under her, there was a woman floating on the lake, her dress spread out, and there was a slight trace of blood on it. Looking at her face, she had fainted. Although she didn't know what method Luo Bin used, but it was obvious that Hai was defeated. For a moment, the whole place fell silent. When Luo Bai scored 91 points, many Yanhuang Immortal Army still had doubts about it, but now these doubts are completely gone. After all, she is a mysterious person herself. Next, there was warm applause. The cultivators from all over the divine continent, some of whom were still not convinced by Yanhuang Emperor City, were convinced after watching this first battle. General Murong was also very surprised. He pondered for a moment and then said, "Congratulations, Luo Bin, for becoming one of the top 16. When she heard the announcement, Luo Bin had already picked up Haiyu by the waist and sent him to his friend. The other party was not seriously injured, but Luo Bin had to use a Taoist technique to restrain him. Luo Bin only needed to untie him. With millions of people watching, Luo Bin returned to Wu Yu. She was calm and calm. After meeting Wu Yu, she said, "Good luck, I won a victory. You can't lose today." Wu Yu smiled slightly, "This is not luck." Soon, the next group of opponents appeared, met in the ancient battlefield, and then started a fierce battle under the announcement of General Murong. Only then did people turn their attention away from Luo Bin. Wu Yu was also attracted. Sure enough, those who can become combatants are very strong in themselves, and they are not far apart from each other. The ensuing battle is not concealed like Luo Bin, but a fierce head-on confrontation, so everyone can see it clearly. The participants in the war can be said to be of all ages. Wu Yu and Qin Fuyu are the two youngest among them. For example, the second battle was a fight between a middle-aged man and an old man. The two had superb Taoist skills and powerful magical powers. They had practiced for many years and had rich experience. The fight was very fierce. The mysterious arts of heaven and earth opened and closed, and the great and magical powers collided violently. When the old man defeated the middle-aged man, he also suffered some injuries and became unstable, which affected the next battle to punish the concubine. Basically, the winners of the first and second groups will play against each other again, and the winner will advance to the quarter-finals. The old man's score among the three generals was over 95, but the middle-aged monk was indeed not weak either. Luo Bin can defeat her opponent, but when she encounters the next opponent, she is not so favored. After all, the opponent was about to die and would risk his life in order to get the guidance of the city lord. Further down, the fierce and exciting showdown continues. Today, the onlookers from all over the divine continent and the young people from all the major sects can be said to be very happy to watch. However, they are also guiding, and the further they go, the stronger the showdown will be, and it will definitely be more exciting. Even, who can reach the top 3 is undoubtedly the biggest suspense. As time goes by, the elites who can enter the top 16 are determined one after another. Among them, Zhang Zhigzun, Qin Fuyi, Murong Su and Li Kahai successively won relatively easily, at least Murong Su did not use his Taoist weapons. Wu Yu could clearly see each of them participating in the battle. Even if their opponents were already very strong, they were still hiding part of their strength. Therefore, it was not yet clear which one was the most difficult to deal with. For each of these 4, I may need to work hard and use all my strength to compete with them. It is difficult to get a spot among the 4 of them, let alone how many years I have. The big ones are not far behind them. To be honest, judging from the strength they have shown so far, the 4 of them may not be able to defeat another opponent and advance to the quarter-finals, because none of their opponents in the next round will be fuel efficient. It was afternoon in a blink of an eye. Because the difference in strength was relatively close, several battles lasted for a long time. Wu Yu is the last one. The one who wins the game before him will be his opponent in the next battle. Of course, the premise is that he has to defeat Yang Suifeng, who is said to be much stronger than the black and white Zhuangxia. In the penultimate scene, Puang Ai, who has been practicing Taoism for nearly 300 years, comes on stage. This is a thin old man who has transformed the Yanhuang immortal armor into a wide robe. He has white eyebrows and white hair. The most noticeable feature is that he has a full head of hair. The silver thread is very long, it can be said to be even with the heel. To be honest, an old man with such long hair can be said to be a bit ugly. However, if you look closely at the silver thread, you can find the difference of the silver thread. Soon Wu Yu understood that this Puang AI actually used a magical power to directly transform the silver threads on his head into an extremely sharp and tough weapon. It was as hard as a gun and could easily penetrate treasured magic weapons. If it softened, it is like a sharp long whip, and can easily tear a person in half, and above the head, such sharp silver wires are enough for hundreds of thousands, and can be extended indefinitely. Once scattered, the entire ancient world will be destroyed. The battlefield is full of silver hair. There is also a magical weapon called the soul-suppressing gate, which is terrifyingly powerful. He was fighting in front of Wu Yu, so Wu Yu watched more carefully. When Puang Ai defeated his opponent and rushed directly into the top 16, Wu Yu still hadn't seen clearly, let alone whether he could defeat him. This is Puang. He feels a lot of pressure. Not only him, but Yan Zhan in front of him, whether it is Qin Fu or Murong Su, their brows are furrowed, as if they are facing a formidable enemy. At least for the four of them, the best answer is only the one among the four. 3 players enter, and one of them has to be pulled down. I'd better defeat Yang Suifeng and stop worrying about this old ghost in Puang. After witnessing this silver-haired maniac mistreating his opponent, not to mention Wu Yu, even the others were horrified. When General Murong read the names of Wu Yu and Yang Suifeng, there was an outpouring of people. Wu Yu's popularity spread across Shushan Immortal Sect and Yanhuang Emperor City. He can be said to be a super topical figure. Now Yanhuang Emperor City Yanzhan, Shushan Xianmen came to watch the battle, and Wu Yu appeared on the stage. Everything became intriguing. For a moment, all eyes were focused on Wu Yu again. Is it him? Shushan probably never expected that he would join Yanhuang Emperor City so quickly. This Wu Yu is indeed a bit ungrateful. You can't say that. After all, he was expelled. As for Yanhuang Emperor City, it was also an invitation from the captain here. The only thing that people didn't expect is that he turned out to be one of the participants in the Yan War. It is said that there is some outstanding performance in the East China Sea. That's the most popular thing right now, isn't it, the fight between Wu Yu and Baishan Mo? He will compete with Baishan Mo in just 3 years in the blink of an eye. He must pass the first hurdle today, otherwise he won't be able to do it at all. Time. The battle between Yan and Yan is very simple. No one is sure that he will be in the top 3, and the same goes for Wu Yu. In fact, I heard that his opponent Yang Suifeng seems to have more people betting on him to win in the outer city. When Wu Yu walked into the ancient battlefield and once again became the center of attention, I believe that the most complicated mood was on the side of Shushan Immortal section, except for Shenzhen Jiao's calm eyes. As for the others, they could hear many discussions around them, and their expressions, they were all a little unhappy. I wouldn't have come if I had known this, because this Wu Yu has made our Shushan Immortal sect embarrassed here, Chen Fu yelled. Scarlet Shadow Sword Master said, come on, just bear with it. Besides, it's not like he can fight as many times as he wants. Once today is over, this Yanzhen will basically be without him. By then, we will be able to be cleaner, saving people from discussing it. This Wu Yu is simply a disgrace to our Shushan. If I were him, I wouldn't come out and embarrass myself. In less than a year, he still wants to fight with these people. These 30 people have put their swords in our Shushan. Which one is not equivalent to the top 10 on the immortal list? Just as Xiao Huanshan finished speaking, there was another commotion on the opposite side. It turned out to be Wu Yu's opponent Yang Suifeng. He entered the room coldly and turned into a streak of blood. In the blink of an eye, he and Wu Yu met in the forest of the ancient battlefield. Heaven-swallowing record. Author, Feng Qing Yang. Chapter 416. After entering the ancient battlefield, Wu Yu no longer cared about what was said outside. Where there are people, there are rivers and lakes. There are millions of people around, that is Jianghu. What Jianghu says depends on what you do. Today, if you lose, you will be completely defeated. If you win, you will take a step forward. If you don't take this step, it will be difficult to get rid of your inner demons. Millions of eyes, gathered together. And to practice Taoism, sometimes you have to go against the will of millions of people. Wu Yu's attention was all on his opponent. The young man in front of him who was also wearing Yanhuang immortal armor was his opponent Yang Suifeng. Just like the rumors, this man is the son of Orion, and he has an innate wild and murderous aura. After years of training, fighting and killing, it has turned into a strong smell of blood and murderous intent. Even the Yanhuang immortal armor is stained with a lot of blood, making it look even more cold-blooded. The person in front of me is like a killer born specifically to hunt life. There are countless geniuses in Yanhuang Emperor City. Yang Suifeng is not very old, and he looks like a 10-year-old boy. His skin is slightly dark, his body is as strong as a cheetah, and his eyes are like the eyes of a beast, with blood in them. Wu Yu, when I saw the opportunity to compete with you, I was excited for days and nights. Fighting against a legend like you would also make my reputation huge. Don't let me down today. Yang Suifeng landed on the ground like a cheetah, stepping on the ground, penetrating through the forest, and silently heading towards Wu Yu. While he was speaking, he turned his hand over, and a white bone spear appeared in his hand. It was somewhat similar to Gu Xian's white bone spurs, but the difference was that there were dense holes in this spear, and blood was flowing out of it. When it falls on the ground, it can corrode large areas of land. Fang Kaoken also specially collected information for Wu Yu, so Wu Yu knew that the super spiritual weapon in his hand was called the blood-eating bone spear, and it was redeemed by Yang Suifeng with millions of merit, which is quite good. The bone gun was bloodthirsty, as if it had countless mouths. In its hands, it greedily locked onto Wu Yu. Behind Wu Yu, above his head, and in front of him, he knew that there were countless eyes, including the Shushan Immortal section. They represented the entire Shushan. Regardless of the victory or defeat today, it would quickly spread to Shushan. I am afraid that Nangong Wei and Qiang Sword Immortal, Tianji Sword Immortal, they all know it. Then, you must not lose. Wu Yu's eyes turned cold. Compared to Yang Suifeng, he was rougher and more violent. Now he took out the Yanhuang Optimus Prime and transformed into the Immortal Ape transformation. He was wearing the Yanhuang Immortal armor and his eyes were burning, like the gold of two suns. Ape, this golden ape is tall and rough, possessing violent physical strength and demonic violence. Its peerless ferocity burst out in an instant, overwhelming Yang Suifeng. What a strong will! Wu Yu's performance was immediately felt by many people. Yang Suifeng was naturally the first to bear the brunt. However, he was not afraid. Instead, he smiled coldly, became more excited, his eyes were much redder, and his whole person was extremely restless. In that case, I won't be polite. This battle is about to break out. For a moment, murderous intent surged into the sky. Yang Suifeng directly used his magical power, rolled with one hand, and the power of his magical power swept across. For a moment, her body seemed to explode, turning into a rain of blood all over the sky. The blood rain rolled and swept away, just like Luo Bin. In the blink of an eye, people were horrified to find that a sea of blood had swept Wu away. Yu and Yang Suifeng were drowned in it. Although this scale is not as large as the sea that Luo Bin created just now, it is extremely bloody. It seems that there are millions of corpses in it to create such a sea of blood. Wu Yu soared into the air with his sword and appeared above the sea of blood without falling into the sea of blood. This is Yang Suifeng's magical power, called the Infinite Blood Realm. Entering the sea of blood is like entering another world and you cannot get out. Yang Suifeng now controls this huge infinite blood world. The sea of blood is rolling, and the water of the sea of blood directly condenses into a big mouth, swallowing Wu Yu. Facing this majestic Wu Yu temporarily he could only dodge. After all, it was impossible for him to directly destroy this huge sea of blood. Boom boom boom. On the ancient battlefield, blood was rolling, and the strong smell of blood swept out, making most people unable to bear it, frowning, or even retreating. You can see that above the sea of blood, big mouths are chasing Wu Yu and biting him, trying to pull Wu Yu into the Wuji blood realm. It is said that as long as he enters, it will be Yang Suifeng's turtle in the urn. Scarlet Shadow Sword Master couldn't help coughing twice and said, well, in our immortal sect, this kind of magical power is basically not allowed to be practiced by disciples. The discipline in Yanhuang Emperor City is still a little looser. There is no sense of proportion. That's true, but even so, under Yang Suifeng's attack, Wu Yu can only run away with his head in his arms. Chen Fuyu folded his arms, contentedly, wanting to see Wu Yu's joke, but he was initially beaten by Wu Yu. The humiliation when Yu was defeated was still lingering in his heart at this moment. This bad breath could not dissipate. He could only imagine that he was that Yang Suifeng, chasing Wu Yu at this moment. But in fact, Yang Suifeng didn't really come out, and this sea of blood couldn't do anything to Wu Yu. Wu Yu was just on it, waiting for him to really fight. Yang Suifeng probably understood it, so while he was chasing after him in the mouth of the blood sea, he suddenly appeared behind Wu Yu, and the blood-devouring bone gun in his hand suddenly showed a cold light, full of murderous intent. Wu Yu turned around and held the Yanhuang Optimus Prime with one hand. Without saying a word, he stepped on the surface of the blood sea and suddenly rushed up. Suddenly, the blood sea sank and almost exposed the ground. Boom boom. This chapter is not finished yet, please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. After several close encounters, Yang Suifeng was sent flying away, causing blood to boil all over his body. This made him understand that he was no match for Wu Yu in this kind of head-on collision. Demon Blood Clone. The moment he flew out, Yang Suifeng's expression was cold, and he actually used another magical power. Now he could indeed practice the second magical power. When Wu Yu took a closer look at the change of this second magical power, he saw that the blood all over his body was from the water gushed out from his body, instantly turning him into a bloodless, desiccated person, with his whole body emaciated, but even so, he looked more like a god of death. His sunken eyes were extremely ferocious, completely blood-red, like a corpse. And the blood that came out of his body actually condensed into a clone around him. The clone looked exactly like Yang Suifeng and looked very strong. These two people, without saying a word, immediately came to kill. The moment they took action, the sea of blood rolled, and many mouths of the sea of blood were swallowed up again. There were even huge waves rushing out, condensing into a thick arm, trying to pull Wu Yu out of the sky. Shoot it on top? Clone. Seeing the demon blood clone, Wu Yu suddenly smiled. Without saying a word, he picked off 10 golden hairs on his head and blew on them. The hairs transformed into 10 golden apes, blocking Wu Yu's attack. In front of me, the opponent's demon blood clones were attacking. They were immediately surrounded by Wu Yu's 10 clones using the dragon trapping technique, and they were unable to struggle for an instant. Wu Yu rushed over and was directly face to face with Yang Suifeng. Blood Dragon Roar. Yang Suifeng suddenly rushed into the sea of blood, rolling up huge waves of blood. The blood wolf used its body as the basis to instantly condense into a bloody divine dragon. The bloody divine dragon rolled on the sea of blood, quickly sweeping through the huge, in the blink of an eye. In a short time, most of the sea of blood was integrated into his body. That giant dragon soared into the sky and landed, impacting with hundreds of millions of kilograms of force. The sharpest point was Yang Suifeng's blood-eating bone spear. This mysterious art of heaven and earth is terrifyingly lethal. Wu Yu fought with him one after another, picking off every move, and now a blood dragon suddenly appeared in the sky. It was so powerful that it charged towards him, fearing that it would bite him into pieces. This majestic momentum was among the forefront of all the battles today. It is an eye-opener for the cultivators of the divine continent, and now is also the most thrilling time for them. Compared with the divine dragon, Wu Yu at this time was simply too small. Although Wu Yu easily suppressed the opponent's clone, the situation was dangerous now. A critical moment. Suddenly, 90 more clones appeared in front of Wu Yu's eyes. The densely packed golden apes are all clones cultivated by Wu Yu with a large amount of Canghai Yuankai pills. Now they have come into use. The art of trapping the dragon and trapping the sky. Centered on Wu Yu's mysterious art of heaven and earth, a huge black vortex suddenly appeared under the blood dragon. 8 black dragons rushed out with a roar. Although they were far less huge than the blood dragon, the 8 heads could barely wrap around the opponent. In an instant, there was a dense black whirlpool, and more than 700 black dragons appeared. Although they were smaller, they entangled the blood dragon to death in a very short moment and intercepted its forward speed. The blood dragon roared and struggled. Under the entanglement of more than 700 black dragons, it vibrated and rolled at high altitude. The scene was very spectacular. At this moment, Wu Yu, who seemed insignificant, suddenly appeared on the dragon head. At this time, the blood dragon had just bitten the black dragons in front of him to pieces, and Wu Yu's Xuanhuan Optimus Prime suddenly stabbed in. Yang Xuefeng was hit directly at this position, on his chest and abdomen. Suddenly, his chest and abdomen were sunk in. He was traumatized and felt dizzy. Boom! The blood dragon disappears. Under Wu Yu's thought, all the black dragons disappeared instantly, and the sky became empty. At this time, everyone could see more clearly. Wu Yu's stick fell cleanly, and he immediately knocked Yang Xuefeng down. Yang Xuefeng fell from the sky. It fell from a high altitude and hit the ground, causing serious damage. At this time, the Xuanhuan Optimus Prime hit his side, shaking the earth for a moment. Bite! Wu Yu appeared next to Yang Xuefeng with a blood-devouring bone gun that was vibrating wildly. The sharp tip of the gun was pressed against Yang Xuefeng's neck and said, "You are defeated." Yang Xuefeng's eyes widened and he gritted his teeth, unwilling to give in. However, everything in front of him and Wu Yu's indifferent face made his determination slip away. He took a deep breath, lowered his head and said, "I surrender, I am convinced." This was a strong defeat on the frontal battlefield, and there was no room for him to be dissatisfied. At this moment, Wu Yu looked up, and the millions of eyes had indeed changed. He then understood that in life, it is useless to talk too much, the key is to win. I'm a little tired today and can't write 2 chapters. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 417. However, his victory was too swift. The showdown with Yang Xuefeng was a head-to-head confrontation. Both sides used their own methods. Wu Yu defeated his opponent not because Yang Xuefeng was weak, but because he was stronger. Especially the perfect indestructible Vajra body, the golden body of Namo Haori King Buddha, is extremely powerful. It is conceivable that a ghost-eating volcano was swallowed into the body and refined. In this battle, Wu Yu showed his extraordinary physical talent, and the whole audience was amazed. Even the immortal sect of Xuanhuan naturally did not expect that this abandoned disciple who had just been expelled from Xuanhuan some time ago would not retreat but advance and rise strongly in the Yanhuang Emperor city. The performance in this battle can simply be described as stunning. Yang Xuefeng showed a suffocating fighting ability, but Wu Yu completely suppressed him. After a while, the audience burst into fierce applause. Wu Yu won the respect of many people with this first battle. Before that, the young disciples at the Xuanhuan Immortal sect had made a lot of sarcastic remarks. But at this moment, Wu Yu was shining brightly. In comparison, they could only hide in the corner and talk nonsense. They suddenly seemed extremely inferior, even to themselves. They all closed their mouths. No matter how thick-skinned they might not be able to speak out. For example, Chen Fui lowered his head and looked gloomy, as if he had been slapped. On the Xuanhuan immortal gate side, Shen Xinjiao smiled slightly. Wu Yu happened to look over at this time and nodded to him. As for the others, Wu Yu simply ignored them. The first round of fierce fighting ended. It was very tragic. 16 battles, every battle was tit for tat. There is no easy way to win. It is indeed a visual feast for the millions of guests who come from afar. The Yanhuang Emperor's city is really scary. People lamented. Of course, what Yanhuang Emperor city wants to send to Shenzhou is also this kind of signal. It's still early, the next round of battle will not be easy. Seeing the gloomy faces of the young people, the Crimson Shadow Sword Master said in embarrassment. Chen Fuyu also found some psychological comfort. He couldn't help but look ferocious and said, by the way, I know his next opponent will be an old monster, the one with the silver needles on his head. This one is truly terrifying. Want top 3? Difficult, difficult. Wu Yu returned to Luo Bin, and she said softly, it seems that you have gained a lot in the East China Sea. With this performance, there is no problem in entering the top 8. Wu Yu shook his head and said, not necessarily. I just saw the old man taking action, and there is no way to deal with it yet. The silver needles flying all over the sky were, to be honest, a bit scary. Not only did the Xuanhuan Immortal sect dislike him, but Wu Yu himself felt horrified. Not to mention wanting to be in the top 3, there are stronger opponents behind him, at least Li Kahai should be able to break into the top 8. Next is a day of rest, and then fight again on the third day. Those who were injured in the first round of fighting should take advantage of this day to recuperate as soon as possible. The millions of people around them finally managed to occupy a position where they could see the battlefield. They did not dare to wander around during this day. After all, there were many people outside entering Yanhuang Emperor City, and the number of people gathered here would only increase. Now that the battle is over, people are naturally in 2s and 3s, discussing the battle and the performance of each character. The most talked about ones were Wu Yu and the 4 geniuses of Yanhuang Emperor City, and Luo Bin was almost forgotten at this time because she was the first one to go into battle. The voices of millions of people were like countless bees flapping their wings in his ears. It was very noisy. Wu Yu was sitting cross-legged on the ground, and it was difficult to enter a quiet environment. Judging from the first battle, the 4 geniuses from Yanhuang Emperor City will have the easiest time. They should be in the top 4 in the end, but I don't know which one will be eliminated in 4th place. To be honest, the decisive battle between 3rd and 4th place is more exciting than the decisive battle between 1st and 2nd place. Then Qin Fui is really beautiful. It is said that the other 3 are competing with each other to pursue her. I wonder which one is qualified to kiss fangs. The so-called Yanhuang 3 young masters are actually fighting overtly and covertly, right? The 3 of them are indeed talented enough to become Taoist companions with Qin Fui. Don't forget Wu Yu, didn't you perform well just now? Okay, but if you include Wu Yu, there are a lot of hopeful people. For example, his opponent in the next battle has a better chance of winning than him, right? Actually, Wu Yu is only powerful physically. I estimate that as time goes by, this advantage will disappear, and he may not be considered a genius in the future. It's okay, but my character is really not good. If I were kicked out by my elders, I wouldn't join another sect so quickly. Isn't this ungrateful? Thousands of comments, thousands of annoyances. It is extremely difficult to stick to your heart under such a spotlight. Wu Yu, are you enlightening? Luo Bin stood beside him and asked him with her head lowered. Luo Bin continued, there are so many public opinions around you, but they still target you and misunderstand you. What do you think? As long as you live with a clear conscience, Wu Yu was answering her and telling himself. That's right, No saint can stop the mouths of sentient beings, Luo Bin said. Wu Yu opened his eyes and looked at her. Although she was plain, she actually had her own persistence and opinions in everything. She was indeed a dragon. To Wu Yu, she might be an ancestor. In fact, if she had pointed out, she might even be similar to the Yanhuang city lord. He then asked, I am with the demons, but I go against the wishes of my elders and my lover. I was expelled from Shushan, and then I join Yanhuang Emperor City. Do you think I am wrong? Luo Bin's eyes were gentle, and there were still countless mysterious contents in those blue eyes. She gently stretched out her finger, pointed at Wu Yu's heart, and said, the great roads in the world are endless, and your own way can be all kinds of strange. No matter what you do, in fact, you already have the answer in your heart, so don't worry about the rumors in the world. One day, you will be able to see the moonlight when the clouds clear. Just as you asked me just now, just live with a clear conscience. This chapter is not finished yet. Please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. Even if everyone in the world is against you, you still have to stick to yourself. If you stick to yourself, you may be right or wrong. If you are right, you will become an immortal. If you are wrong, you will be doomed. But if you listen to others and shake your mind, heart, you are not you, and it is impossible to dream of becoming an immortal. Throughout history, most people who have become immortals have been terribly paranoid. Her tone was soft and not fast, but she was extremely firm and unwavering. This is due to strong confidence and countless tracking and verifications, and we can have such a firm answer. In fact, Luo Bin was not telling Wu Yu, but was warning herself. She's right, Minglong suddenly said. Minglong is also a veteran. Frankly speaking, there are two women, and they are both people who have reached a very deep level of cultivation. Wu Yu believes in them. He closed his eyes. Minglong and Lubi have both cultivated the Great Path. They fully support my actions, especially Minglong. In their eyes, all my decisions are not wrong at all. But among these millions of living beings, there are so many I think there is something wrong with me. This may be why they are not as good as Minglong and Luo Bin. Those who practice Taoism must not follow the crowd and let others manipulate them. Suddenly, the fog in front of Wu Yu's eyes cleared, and he looked up to the avenue with sincerity. At this moment, he felt a sense of detachment. It could be seen that Luo Bin's words had made his state of mind improve a lot. I am afraid that the road to the 10th level of the Golden Elixir realm is nearing the end. Thank you, he said to Luo Bin. Your creation has nothing to do with me. If you understand the great Dao, just thank yourself. Luo Bin's voice was like gentle water, surrounding her whole body. Before I knew it, the third day had arrived. Luo Bin continued to fight. As soon as Wu Yu opened his eyes, she reappeared and went to the ancient battlefield. To be honest, Wu Yu was not worried at all about the battle. Now, perhaps no one would have thought that this Luo Bin could definitely be among the top 3. It all depends on whether she wants to be first, second or third. Wu Yu simply closed his eyes and continued his practice. Under General Murong's announcement, Luo Bin and an old man fought fiercely. The scene was still as huge as before, even more violent. Loud noises from people could be heard from time to time. Wu Yu was immersed in his own world. About a quarter of an hour later, he heard General Murong announce with some shock, the winner, Luo Bin. Congratulations, one of the top 8, the top 3 has a great chance. After the announcement, the scene seemed to be very noisy. Luo Bin's battle directly became the biggest breaking point so far. When Luo Bin defeated her opponent, people used the term dark horse to describe her performance this time. Wu Yu opened his eyes and saw that Luo Bin looked slightly embarrassed, with some blood stains on the Yanhuang immortal armor, but her eyes were still unwavering. Amid the shocking gazes of millions of people, she returned to her position. Who is this woman? Why have I never heard of it? She actually entered the top 8. It's incredible. Now, the first one I guessed in the top 8 list was wrong, and the 50 Kanghai Yuan Kai pills were gone. She seems to be called Luo Bin. She has never been famous before. She has practiced Taoism for more than 70 years and is not considered a genius. However, she performed so well in these 2 duels. As Luo Bin said, leave the battle to yourself and leave the evaluation to others. The most correct thing is to ignore all comments. Wu Yu watched her walking towards him without any hesitation while facing the gaze of millions of people. At that moment, he felt that this woman was definitely a born king. She is the hero who rules the world and is the unquestionable queen. However, she was not rude, but Gujing Buobo, and in her own unique way, Wu Yu was attracted by her calm and indifferent domineering attitude at this moment. Xuanhuan immortal armor, whose face cannot be seen. But those eyes took Wu Yu straight to his spiritual realm. He was a little shocked, so he didn't watch the subsequent battle carefully. This round is basically a showdown between old and new. Wu Yu didn't come back to his senses until Qin Fuyu went to battle again, and she faced an old man with a greater reputation than Puang Hui. Shenlong, it's just different. He turned his head and glanced at Luo Bin. /U003 cent /U003E /U003C /Sente /U003E. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 418. Qin Fui inherited the legacy of Kamikaze Daoji, and she is superior to everyone in terms of magical powers and the mystical arts of heaven and earth. That divine wind Daoji was the founding ancestor of a sect, and her strength was no weaker than that of the Kwang Sword Emperor inherited by Nangang Wei. Her methods were even so weird that Qin Fuyu, who was at the 3rd level of the Kanghai realm in Zifu, almost bring out the 5th level combat power of Zi Mansion Kanghai realm. Among the so-called 4 geniuses among the centurions of Yanhuang Emperor City, Qin Fuyu or Murong Su should be the strongest. Although Qin Fuyu does not have the most powerful Taoist weapon, she is exceptionally balanced in all aspects. On the ancient battlefield, a storm raged, and her black skirt flew up. In the strong wind, her body shape changed invisibly, and her speed was terrifying. It can be said that among all the participants in the Yan War, Qin Fuyu was the fastest. Even Wu Yu could not figure out his figure, as if his presence was densely packed in the storm. That silver bell-like laughter also sounded everywhere. She seemed to be holding a pair of folding fans in her hands. The folding fans were very beautiful, as red as peonies, and seemed to be embroidered with many beautiful women, all of them lifelike. Qin Fuhuang waved this pair of folding fans. The violent storms and tornadoes everywhere on the ancient battlefield were caused by these folding fans. Qin Fuyu was wearing a long skirt, with an enchanting figure, and she was dancing gracefully with a folding fan. She looked a bit like a fan-wielding dancer in the palace. Of course, when she danced, the movement was much louder. However, Qin Fuyu was not relaxed either. Her opponent, who has extraordinary combat power, is a senior centurion from Yanhuang Emperor City. He has profound attainments and also has a high possibility of entering the top 3. The fierce confrontation between the two turned the world upside down, and the earth shook. Finally, a quarter of an hour later, Qin Fuwei relied on her speed and magical power to defeat her opponent. Although she was a little tired, she also made it to the top 8, leaving no one who liked her. People are disappointed. General Qin is naturally very satisfied. After entering the top 8, Qin Fui has a high possibility of success. Before Qin Fuyu, when Wu Yu was still enlightening, it seemed that Zhang Zhigzun also defeated his opponent with difficulty. Wu Yu thought about the schedule and found that Luo Bin's next opponent turned out to be Zhang Zhigzun. However, the only thing is not much better. Judging from the victories of Zhang Zhigzun and Qin Fuyu, these young geniuses still have a better chance of winning. After all, they have accumulated a lot of resources and are now in their prime. Although the older generation has rich experience, they are already old and cannot keep up in many aspects. Next is Murong-Su's battle. As soon as Murong-Su took action, he caused 9 thunderbolts under the sky, which was extremely powerful. It seemed to be a mysterious art of heaven and earth called 9 mysterious thunder strikes the top. It was probably so powerful that it created many deep pits in this ancient battlefield. Murong-Su performed well. His opponent was not as strong as Xuanhuan, so he defeated his opponent with the power of thunder without using Taoist weapons, raising the names and reputations of the 4 geniuses to the top. After all, 3 of the 4 have already defeated those old monsters who have practiced Taoism for more than 200 years. Even General Murong and others did not expect that the 4 of them would be so outstanding. Now, the whole world is admiring them. After another battle, 2 of the 8 battles were left, namely Li Kehai and his opponent, and Wu Yu and Puang Ai. Li Kehai's opponent is also very scary. He wears a black robe and has practiced Taoism for hundreds of years. He has been fighting against demons all year round and has mastered many mysteries of heaven and earth. Li Kehai was very excited. Wu Yu clearly saw that before the fight, he looked at himself instead. The provocative meaning was obvious. He, Li Kehai, once dominated the world with his powerful physical body. Now someone finally appeared who surpassed him in this aspect. He was naturally unconvinced. Perhaps, he wanted to prove himself in front of the world. With just one glance, Li Kehai and his opponent fell into a rough and fierce confrontation. Li Kehai's physical body is indeed terrifying. In fact, his talent in Zifu Yuanli is not as good as Xuanhuan's and others, but his terrifying physical body makes his fists explode. His whole body was on fire, his skin looked like red-hot steel, and molten lava was rolling inside. Everywhere he went, there was destruction. His fighting method was very similar to Wu Yu's. The key is that, like Wu Yu, he has no regard for physical pain. He fights like a madman. His unyielding will to destroy the world is quite thrilling. Even compared to Wu Yu, this Li Kehai is more capable. Having endured hardship, it is conceivable that he was able to have the physical body he has today. Like Wu Yu, he must have endured a lot of hardships to forge it. Therefore, during the battle, Li Kehai became even more violent. Basically, he was defeated time and time again, but he got up again and sprinted violently. It was like a giant beast colliding, and the earth shook for a while. The rocks and big trees were struck by Li Kehai. The sea of suffering explodes one after another. Moreover, this person is very good at close combat. His martial arts skills have also been accumulated over many years. Indeed, Wu Yu saw himself in Li Kehai. In fact, from the beginning, Li Kehai let his opponent suppress him, as if he was being chased and beaten. But Wu Yu knows that he will win sooner or later, because his defense is stronger and his will is more tenacious. The opponent has been unable to defeat him, but once he finds the opportunity, he can definitely kill him with one strike. As expected, after fighting to the death for 2/4 of an hour, Li Kehai found an opportunity and hit his opponent with a punch, sending him flying directly out of the ancient battlefield and severely injuring him on the spot. At that moment, Li Kehai raised his head and roared ferociously, while the cultivators around him were shocked and fell into silence. After this round of fighting, among the 4 geniuses of Yanhuang Emperor City, Li Kehai was the most difficult to win, but also the most shocking. People definitely did not doubt Li Kehai's strength, and were even more horrified by his crazy will and immortality. Determination. This chapter is not finished yet. Please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. Li Kehai left the deepest impression on people. Although Li Kehai seems to be at a disadvantage, among the 4 geniuses, I guess Zhang Zhigzun is no match for him. If Li Kehai loses to Murong-Su, I estimate that among the 4 geniuses, Zhang Zhigzun will be the last to be eliminated. Yes, Zhang Zhigzun is good at the art of traps and his fighting methods are very smart, but in terms of will, Li Kahai is invulnerable and is indeed stronger and more terrifying. I estimate that the top 3 should be Murongsu, Xuanhuan, and Li Kahai. This is probably not a big problem. Of course, I can't be sure. Maybe Xuanhuan may be eliminated. Of course, Li Kahai and Zhang Zhigzun are more likely to compete for the 3rd spot. There is another battle between Wu Yu, who is known as the 5th genius. Whether Wu Yu can enter the circle of these 4 geniuses depends on whether he can enter the top 8 this time. People were still talking, and Li Kahai hadn't left the ancient battlefield yet. After the battle, roaring and venting, Li Kahai's eyes found Wu Yu again, and the scorching sight came. Li Kahai said in a thick voice, "Wu Yu, it's up to you. If you defeat your opponent, I'll give you 2,000 Kanghai Yuan Kai pills. 2 million achievements. This number can make 90% of the cultivators present tremble. 2,000 Kanghai Yuan Kai pills are really too many. Li Kahai, he strongly wants to fight Wu Yu. This is a physical battle, perhaps also a battle of will, and he wants to prove that in this regard, he, Li Kahai, is the best in the world. Ever since, people couldn't help but envy Wu Yu. Now, Wu Yu may have to fight hard to get into the top 8. After all, 2,000 Kanghai Yuan Kai pills is an unprecedentedly huge sum. For Wu Yu, this is indeed the case. After all, he doesn't have much backstage now, just like when he was in Xuanhuan. So he probably doesn't have much wealth on hand. In order to win these 2,000 Kanghai Yuan Kai pills, Wu Yu would probably go crazy. He is so lucky, maybe because the two are similar, so Li Kahai wants to fight him head-on this occasion to distinguish the male from the male. So lucky. So many Kanghai Yuan Kai pills are enough to make many people jealous. People felt that Wu Yu had taken advantage. But the people from Xuanhuan Immortal sect said, "Don't think too much, Wu Yu's opponent is not weak, he will definitely not be able to get these 2,000 Kanghai Yuan Kai pills." Yes, I guess you are happy for nothing, so don't get too proud so early. For a moment, the scene was chaotic. Most people think Wu Yu is lucky. Others have to finish second to get 3 million, but he only needs to be in the top 8 to get 2 million. Including the rewards from Yanhuang Emperor City, it's 250. Wu Yu couldn't help laughing. Baishan Mo once wanted to use Jian Kanghai Yuan Kai pill to get himself away from Nangong Wei. Now Li Kahai has to use 2,000 Kanghai Yuan Kai pills to inspire himself so that he can win the opportunity to challenge him. It's all humiliating. When will I stop being humiliated by others in such a condescending manner? Wu Yu sneered inwardly. Just when the quarrel was getting louder, Wu Yu suddenly said, "Kanghai Yuan Kai pill, you should wait until I defeat you before giving it to me." These words are full of gunpowder. Although I still accept the Kanghai Yuan Kai pill, the concept is different. Li Kahai wanted to encourage him to defeat Puang Ai and become his opponent, so he would reward him with 2,000 Kanghai Yuan Kai pills, but what Wu Yu said was that after defeating him. That's not charity, it's Li Kahai who lost to Wu Yu. Buzz. The crowd was noisy. Wu Yu has stirred a hornet's nest. He is still the same as he was in Xuanhuan. He is very courageous and still doesn't know who can and cannot provoke. It was because he provoked Baishan Mo that he was expelled from Xuanhuan. He probably hasn't learned the lesson yet, so I guess he won't stay in Yanhuang Emperor City for too long. Yanhuang Emperor City can't accept such an arrogant and ignorant person. Everyone laughed. Only Li Kahai, with a gloomy look on his face, said, "That's as you wish. However, if you can't win this game, I will look down on you. From now on, you have no qualifications to be compared with me." Speaking of this, the old man Puang Ai had already arrived at the ancient battlefield. He said with a smile, "You two young people, why don't you take the old man seriously? The clay figurines also have a temper. If you want to fight, the old man will do it. Disagree? The madman went to Hainan for the annual meeting today. Once a year, friends of the author get together and chat. Old readers basically know it. I guess I won't be able to add more updates in the next few days. It's almost the end of the month. It is estimated that the 400,000 yuan will not be completed, but it doesn't matter. There are no travel plans in June, there are no long journeys, and there are no chores to do, so it is suitable to add more code words. Therefore, if you cannot complete it this month, you will make up for it in the first 10 days of next month. /U003 cent /U003e /U003c /cente /U003e. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 419. Chapter 416, A Plan Within a Plan. Li Kehai stared at Wu Yu, but he had forgotten about the old man Puang Ai, which made the old guy very upset. Writing this, I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network rightward arrow. As a monk, the older he gets, the more arrogant he becomes. Puang Ai was actually furious. This feeling of being ignored really made him lose face. Li Kehai glanced at him indifferently and left the ancient battlefield. Here, only Wu Yu and Puang Ai were left. Because the tit-for-tat confrontation between Wu Yu and Li Kehai aroused strong curiosity, people were eager to see Wu Yu and Li Kehai fight, so the last fierce battle between Wu Yu and Li Kehai in this round was particularly exciting. For so many years, those who dare not take the old man seriously will not end well, no matter they are geniuses or whatever. Little guy, if you want to take those 2,000 Kanghai Yuankai pills, you have to ask me if I agree. Puang, he shouted sharply, his eyes widened, and he was very intimidating. Wu Yu didn't want to say more. Now everyone was paying attention, and those eyes made people feel like their bodies were burning with fire. It was conceivable that everyone had their own thoughts about this battle. In this fierce battle, anything can happen. A powerful collision. Everyone is not too far apart. It is really not certain who will win between Wu Yu and Puang Ai. It's just that Puang Ai seems to have a better chance of winning, but in fact, the old man who fights against the four geniuses of Yanhuang Emperor City has a higher chance of winning. Wu Yu, he can stand among the top 16. The more powerful he is, the more embarrassing Wei Shushan will be. This kid wants to prove himself. Invisibly, he slaps our Shushan, Tianji Sword Immortal and Qiang Sword Immortal. While there was a lot of discussion among the Shushan Immortal sect, Wu Yu started a fierce battle with Puang Ai. That Puang Ai was so perverted that as soon as the battle started, he used his magical power. His white hair spread out and lengthened for a while. Hundreds of thousands of long hair snaked and danced like snakes in the ancient battlefield, covering this large area. Control their territory. If you dare to ignore me, I will make you riddled with holes. The old man's face turned red, and he shouted loudly, and his silver hair suddenly rolled like an ocean. Although she looks beautiful, she is actually very murderous. It is said that one person in Puang can deal with thousands of demon cultivators. With her silver hair spread out, if pierced by a spear, it can kill thousands of people through their hearts. Boom boom boom. Silver strangled and pierced. For a time, trees and rocks were pierced one after another, and the scene exploded. Wu Yu was the first to bear the brunt. Just when everyone was exclaiming and worried about Wu Yu suddenly transformed, and instantly hundreds of Wu Yes appeared in front of Puang Ai. Then they immediately dispersed and quickly surrounded Puang Ai, living in all directions in the world and underground. Such a big scene also made people admire Wu Yu's ability as a clone. Puang was also stunned. After all, he didn't know which one was the real Wu Yu. However, he reacted instantly. The silver hair stirred and flew all over the sky. The silver needles came out and stabbed at all Wu Yu and his clones. Buzz. At that moment, Wu Yu's clone also moved very fast. He had to use Taoist magic to resist or dodge. After all, Puang Ai had to deal with hundreds of people respectively. His accuracy was far behind in terms of strength, so he could really hit very few. However, he roared angrily and still tried his best to hunt down Wu Yu's clones. Sometimes he could indeed hit a clone, but Wu Yu's body was hidden in it and he couldn't find it at all. "Don't run away if you have the guts," Puang roared. The soul-suppressing gate. He displayed the super-spiritual magic weapon and placed it in front of his eyes. The soul-suppressing door shot out a beam of light. As long as it was illuminated, the soul would be shocked, and it would instantly feel huge suppression. It would be like being hit hard on the head, making you dizzy. However, Wu Yu's clone has no soul, so this soul-suppressing gate is basically useless to Wu Yu. After all, his clones can change quickly. As long as his true self does not take the initiative to attack and hides in it, the soul-suppressing gate and the sky full of silver needles still couldn't find him. As for the scene, it was Puang Ai who had the upper hand. People could only see that although Wu Yu had many clones, they were all chased by his opponents, and occasionally one or two would be impaled. If this continues, Wu Yu's clones will indeed become fewer and fewer. The battle fell into an anxious state. Puang Ai's magical power silver light is so terrifying that Wu Yu has no chance to attack him. It seems that Wu Yu wants to challenge Li Kahai, but the chance doesn't seem to be very good. It looks like he really won't be able to hold on for long. Sure enough, Zhang is still too old. Under such circumstances, Wu Yu can't get close at all. Thousands of discussions are endless. However, Wu Yu was not affected. "Trash, is this all you can do to avoid?" The old man Puang Ai had the upper hand and was extremely proud of himself. Suddenly, hundreds of Wu Ye stopped, turned around suddenly, and at the same time used the mysterious technique of heaven and earth to entrap dragons and trap heaven. A familiar scene appeared again. Just like when Wu Yu defeated Yang Suifeng, a large number of black vortexes were born. Hundreds of black dragons rushed out, some of them entangled Puang Ai, and some of them entangled Puang's long hair. In a short moment, it was considered that Puang was completely under control. The black dragon roared and was engaged in a fierce confrontation with the rioting silver light in Puang. If the silver light were countless big snakes, the twisting power was quite terrifying. At this moment, Wu Yu repeated his old trick. Among the crowd, Wu Yu held the Yanhuang Optimus Prime and suddenly rushed out. When the dragon prisoning heaven trapping technique entangled the opponent, he held the Yanhuang Optimus Prime and suddenly with a violent killing, the huge Optimus Prime fell from the sky and smashed into Puang's head. This chapter is not finished yet, please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. Yellow Emperor's ground formation. At that moment, golden light burst out. The stick was smashed down, and the target was Puang Ai's head, which was entangled by the black dragon. At this time, Puang Ai was engaged in a fierce confrontation. When Wu Yu held the Yanhuang Optimus Prime, he actually laughed, "Finally found your true form." At that moment, under his control, his soul-suppressing gate broke through Wu Yu's black dragon and appeared in front of Wu Yu. At the same time, his silver hair gradually tore the black dragon into pieces, and even he almost broke free. After coming out, by this moment, Wu Yu could no longer control him. Soul. Puang Ai controlled the soul-suppressing gate, and before Wu Yu's Yellow Emperor's ground formation came to kill him, a ray of light broke through the golden light of Yanhuang Optimus Prime and struck Wu Yu's body. Puang Ai finally found Wu Yu's body. Of course, it's a fatal blow. This attack not only has the power to calm the soul, but also has the extraordinary UN power of Zifukanghai. Boom! Yanhuang Optimus Prime flew out, and Wu Yu's body exploded instantly. People were shocked at that time. They never expected that Wu Yu would die in battle like this. How is that possible? Many people screamed. The scene was chaotic for a while. Puang's plan succeeded. He knew that Wu Yu would use the dragon trapping technique, so he deliberately showed weakness and found an opportunity to attack Wu Yu. The moment he found Wu Yu's body, he exploded with all his strength. At this time, he not only killed Wu Yu, but also he was almost torn apart from the black dragon's entanglement. Wu Yu, people exclaimed in shock, their hearts beating extremely hard. At this moment, at the nearest place behind Puang Ai, a clone of Wu Yu suddenly took action, and a black sword pierced out from his hand. When Puang Ai was most excited, he stabbed Puang Ai in the front. He screamed, his face turned pale, and he was shocked. At this time, Wu Yu's clone put away the black sword, took back the Yanhuang Optimus Prime that flew out, and hit Puang Ai's head on the head. With a click, Puang Ai hit the ground, receiving such a heavy blow. After the attack, Puang Ai fainted on the spot and was no longer able to fight. They originally thought that Wu Yu was defeated or even died in battle, but such a change happened in an instant. When people saw Puang Ai lying unconscious on the ground, and hundreds of Wu Yu surrounded him, people discovered that it seemed that Wu Yu was defeated. In fact, Wu Yu was just following his plan. Used an old method from before. He guessed that Puang Ai must be prepared for his dragon trapping technique and would not be defeated by him so easily, so he came up with a way. First, he used the trapping dragon technique, and then used a clone to attack with Yanhuang Optimus Prime in his hand. At that time, Puang couldn't find his own body, so he must have subconsciously thought that the person with Yanhuang Optimus Prime was Wu Yu's body. Not really. The real body, holding the Emperor Kui sword, hid behind him and attacked and killed Wu Yu's clone in Puang. At the moment of excitement, he stabbed out a Xianxian frightening sword technique. Emperor Kui's sword energy instantly penetrated Puang Ai's defense, causing him to be stunned on the spot. Then one stick directly resolves the battle. This battle can be described as clean and elegant. The key is that Wu Yu has brought the art of fighting to the extreme, so people haven't reacted yet. In fact, most people were also confused by Wu Yu. He has thought about extra-legal clones, so he knows that the role of extra-legal clones must not only be a siege, but also should pay attention to strategies and confuse the enemy. The Taoist techniques and magic tools that everyone masters will actually have different effects if used in different ways. Wu Yu also pondered some fighting methods on weekdays and demonstrated mortal combat to the extreme. This actually had something to do with the art of war. Therefore, when Wu Yu put away all the clones and looked around, people were still amazed. Until General Murong said with a smile, "We are of equal strength," but Wu Yu cleverly used his own ability to defeat his opponent in the easiest way. This is a lesson for everyone. He won more easily than anyone else today, therefore, he deserves to be among the top 8 in Yanzhan. Congratulations to Wu Yu. It wasn't until he said this that many people understood. It turns out that at that moment, there were so many changes in my heart. Therefore, after understanding, there was a lot of heartfelt applause. Wu Yu raised his head and saw so many blazing eyes, and he felt a lot more pride in his heart. This is the world that suits you. Top 8. Next battle, Li Kahai. The top 8 are already quite close to my goal. Today at the annual meeting, I got together with my author friends, drank some wine, and came back to write a chapter. Update first. Very few updates these days. More updates in a few days /U003% /U003C/Sente. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 420. Reach the top 8 easily and quickly. At this moment, Wu Yu stepped on Puang, stationing the Yanhuang Optimus Prime on the ground, with a look of disdain that shook the world. Basically, being able to reach the top 8 is a symbol of the top level of strength. Each of the 32 is very strong, so every game is a life and death fight. Several friends of Puang Ai took him away. Before leaving, they naturally did not forget to give Wu Yu a vicious look and cursed, "You are so cruel. Can this old bone of Puang withstand such a beating from you?" Writing this, I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network rightward arrow. I am sensible. He will be back to his original state after some rest. You are so powerful, you have cut off this old ghost's last hope. Wu Yu knew what the so-called last hope was. The deadline was almost here in Puang. He wanted to go to the city lord's mansion to see if the city lord could give him some advice. Maybe he could make a breakthrough and live a few more years. However, the world is so cruel, and if you don't practice Taoism, it will be difficult to survive for hundreds of years. If Wu Yu didn't intercept him, Li Kahai behind him would also block his path. Thinking of Li Kahai, Wu Yu could naturally feel a scorching gaze coming from the North War Preparation Station. Sure enough, it belonged to Li Kahai. His eyes were scorching, and there was violence in the scorching heat. It was a kind of heavy hostility. Wu Yu understood what he was feeling. He did not dislike or hate Wu Yu, but simply regarded Wu Yu as an opponent who must be defeated. At this time, because the top 8 had been born, several generals gathered together. General Murong, General Qin, General Gu, General Jinluan, and General Yugu all appeared. They were all figures equivalent to the sword master of Shushan, the top of the Shenzhou. A group of people. General Murong smiled at all the cultivators and said, "The top 8 in our battle in Yanhuang Emperor City have been decided. Do you think these dozens of battles are exciting?" Of course, the effect of the tide of people and this fierce battle would probably only be as exciting as the Yanhuang Emperor City later. Come up, everyone. At the request of General Murong, Wu Yu and other 8 people who successfully entered the top 8 rose into the air and appeared in front of the 5 Yanhuang generals in various ways. To the 5 generals, except for the slightly unfamiliar faces of Wu Yu and Luo Bin, the others were quite familiar. At this time, 8 people gathered together, which naturally attracted everyone's attention. The enchanting Qin Fuyu twisted her waist and swam to Wu Yu's side like a water snake. She stretched out her fingers and pinched Wu Yu's shoulders. When Wu Yu looked at her, she said coquettishly, "You stinky guy, how can you make progress? It's so annoying to catch up so quickly." Her soft, delicate voice can make people's scalp tingle. "Fu Wei, don't make trouble and be serious." General Qin's face was ashen, but there was really nothing he could do about his precious adopted daughter. Wu Yu took a look and found that in addition to the 6 people he expected, there were 2 others, one was an old man and the other was a middle-aged man. Wu Yu had seen their battles. Their power was similar to Qin Fuyu's previous opponents, but in the last strong showdown between the top 16, the 2 of them exhausted themselves too much. Now they are pale, and they still need time to recuperate. The battle is only 1 day apart. If they don't recover well the day after tomorrow, it will be difficult for Qin, the opponent of Fuyu and Murongxiu. General Murong was still very satisfied with their lineup. At least most of them were young people who won. This is what the city lord wants to see. Young people have huge potential, and the more room they have for progress when they enter the city lord's mansion. In the midst of the envy, awe, and admiration of millions of people, General Murong faced Wu Yu and the other 8 people and said word for word in a serious and solemn voice, "Congratulations to all 8 of you. After coming here, it means that you have obtained, of course, I know that your ambition is not this. Competing for the top 3 is the most important thing. Then at least half of you will succeed in the end. Looking at it now, the possibility of success is already quite big." Even so, everyone's expressions were not relaxed, and they even became more tit for tat. There was a strong smell of gunpowder when they looked at each other. Especially between Wu Yu and Li Kahai. The Yan and Huang, 3 young masters, were allied with each other, so they were all closely connected with Li Kahai at this time. The day after tomorrow, everyone knows who everyone's opponent is. If there is nothing else, let's disperse. There will be 4 battles the day after tomorrow. Among them, the opponents of Qin Fuyu and Murong Su seem to have a hard time returning to their prime. In addition, these 2 young geniuses may not have exhausted their full strength, so their chances of directly entering the top 4 are quite high. The ones in question are Wu Yu and Luo Bin. Their opponents are Li Kehai and Zhang Zhigzun among the 4 geniuses. These 2 people have rich resources and are both talented. To be honest, they are not as good as the Shushan Immortal section. There is not much difference between Baishan Mo and Nangong Wei. Wu Yu's confrontation with them now, or even his confrontation with Baishan Mo, is obviously not very different. The next battle between him and Luo Concubine is the focus of everyone's attention. Many people even came here just to witness this battle with their own eyes. Between Luo Bin and Zhang Zhigzun, Wu Yu was certain that Zhang Zhigzun, who was favored by most people, would never be able to defeat Luo Bin and enter the top 4. For him, the only suspense was the close fight between him and Li Kehai beside him. Perhaps in order to stimulate each other's fighting spirit and enthusiasm, General Murong asked the 8 of them to stay on the southern preparation platform together and not leave at will. When the 8 of them fell into the empty preparation platform, each other, especially there is indeed a great spark between the opponents. However, Wu Yu and Li Kehai can take care of themselves for the time being. Li Kehai was with Murong Su, Qin Fuyi, and Zhang Zhigzun. Wu Yu's and Luo Bin stood on the edge. The other 2 are another small team. Just as he landed, Zhang Zhigzun looked this way, and finally his eyes fell on Luo Bin. He stared at Luo Bin with a smile on his face and said, "Although I don't know where you came from, but, I still want to warn you that if you go against me, there will be no good consequences. If the war starts the day after tomorrow, you must know how to retreat and don't force me to make you miserable, do you understand?" Before this battle, he had never looked directly at Luo Bin. After all, in terms of talent, Luo Bin didn't seem to be on the same level as them. Luo Bin was sitting cross-legged on the futon with Wu Yu, recuperating. Suddenly she heard the strange voice of the introduction. She raised her head slightly, met Zhang Zhigzun's eyes and said, "Are you trying to bribe or intimidate me? Let me lose to you." Although she spoke softly, she did not hide it, so many people could hear it with their own ears. This kind of conversation was indeed a bit embarrassing for Zhang Zhigzun. When he heard some comments or suspicious looks, he was furious and glared at Luo Bin. His voice suddenly became colder and said, "That's not the case, I just want you to be more careful and admit defeat in time, so as not to lose your life where you shouldn't." Luo Bin didn't pay much attention to him. Zhang Zhigzun was looked at by many people and left alone, which was actually a bit embarrassing. In fact, when talking to a monk like Luo Bin, he was basically respectful when talking to him. After all, it is no surprise that Zhang Zhigzun has become more and more popular in recent years. Too much more than they need to please in advance. Murong Su next to him said, "Forget it, I'll see you Zhenjiang then." Although he said this, Zhang Zhigzun still couldn't stand this tone. On impulse, he sneered at Luo Bin and said, "Don't pretend to be noble in front of so many people in Yanhuang Emperor City. Who knows what's underneath your mask? How ugly is it, otherwise how could it not be seen?" These words were so harsh that Wu Yu's scalp went numb when he heard them. He thought to himself that Zhang Zhigzun was crazy. When the words fell, Wu Yu clearly felt that Luo Bin had changed a bit, and her blue eyes appeared instantly. A kind of murderous intention. It's hard to see her with such a fierce side. Although it was only for a moment, it was thrilling enough. Don't seeing that Luo Bin was about to get angry, Wu Yu said subconsciously. However, it seemed that it was precisely because of his reminder that Luo Bin put away her momentary displeasure, and her murderous intention was not even noticed by anyone except Wu Yu. Just teach him a lesson when the time comes. Seeing Luo Bin looking at him, Wu Yu forced a smile and said, After all, this is a dragon, so you should be careful when talking to her. At that moment, Wu Yu had personally experienced the horror of Luo Bin. Boring Zhang Zhigzun looked at them coldly for the last time, and then returned to Murong Su's group. The three of them were secretly discussing what they were discussing. Qin Fui is preparing for the next battle. Even she is not absolutely sure of winning the top three. Therefore, the atmosphere of this ancient battlefield is becoming more and more tense. Most people are reluctant to leave, and the newcomers there are more and more people. Wu Yujing concentrated his attention. He found that in the previous battle, his methods were almost displayed to the extreme. He must make a breakthrough next, otherwise it would be difficult to fight with Li Kahai. Although he only had a little more than a day, he still actively pondered the Emperor Hong sword and Emperor Kui sword. In particular, the two types of magic weapon arrays that focus on attacking and killing are the focus of his research. These days have been fierce battles, so there have been many gains. Now the eyes of everyone are the pressure. In this situation, the pressure has increased sharply. In the blink of an eye, the battle of the top 8 arrives in an instant. The opening is one of suspenseful battles. It starts with Luo Bin and Zhang Zhigzun, who had a slight conflict before. After General Murong made the announcement, the two walked into the ancient battlefield, immediately causing millions of people to make noises, and the scene was extremely lively. Zhang Zhigzun was the top 3 favorite, while Luo Bai was the dark horse who had been fighting all the way. The two were tit for tat. This battle instantly brought the scene to the hottest stage. Judging from the odds of Zhang Zhigzun and Luo Bin winning are about 4-1. It seems that people still believe in the 4 geniuses of Yanhuang Emperor City more. After all the non-genius monks who encountered them were crushed and defeated. They proved to the world that this was the battlefield for their 4 young geniuses. /U003% /U003C/Sente. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 421. Before General Murong made the announcement, Zhang Zhigzun had no patience. He directly used the mechanism he was good at. As soon as the Sumuru bag came out, after opening it, he saw the roar of a real beast and a shock. Suddenly, you could see the Sumuru bag rushing out of the mechanism. That was a giant beast that is comparable to a demon, but it is made entirely of wood made of special materials. Countless large and small pieces of wood are piled up, coupled with carvings, to finally form a lifelike giant beast. The giant beast in front of me is full of energy, with a head like a dragon and a body like a horse. Its whole body is burning with flames, and under the cover of the flames, there are actually countless magic circles drawn on the mechanism. It is these thousands of mechanism arrays that make this pile of dead things completely come alive. This is the magic of the mechanism technique. Judging from its appearance, this giant beast should be regarded as the legendary Kirin. No one knows whether Kylin exists in the world, but this mechanical Kylin is indeed powerful and terrifying. Wu Yu had also seen this mechanism fire unicorn. In the previous battle, Zhang Zhigzun used this mechanism fire unicorn to get through the enemy all the way and kill here. The mechanism was damaged, but he was not personally injured. Rumor has it that this is the mechanism beast that Zhang Zhigzun found among the remains of the Xianzhen Taoist during his trip this time. Some people saw the machine beast for the first time and couldn't help but exclaimed in admiration when they saw that the machine beast looked like a demon. Unexpectedly, in the next moment, another machine beast came out of Sumi's bag, juxtaposed with the machine fire unicorn. Its size and appearance were roughly similar to the fire unicorn, but most of the magic circles on it were dark green. Water mist filled the whole body, black ice was flying in all directions, the air was freezing cold. It turned out to be a machine-made black unicorn. The fire unicorn's combat power combined with Zhang Zhigzun's was already terrifying enough. Unexpectedly, with the addition of another one, Zhang Zhigzun's combat power suddenly increased horribly. He himself was also very proud. With a sly smile on his face, he looked at Lugobin and said with a smile, "No matter you are a beauty or an ugly woman, today I will take off your mask and helmet and let everyone see why you are pretending to be mysterious. Can you support me?" Zhang Zhigzun's laughter stirred up people. When people heard this, they realized that many people had been curious about Lugobin for a long time. At this time, they naturally started to cheer and supported Zhang Zhigzun in doing this. Little did he know that this would only anger the dragon. After Zhang Zhigzun finished speaking, he stood behind the two machine unicorns. He was not polite. At this time, he directly commanded the two machine beasts to kill Lugobin. Among the machine beasts, there were also attack arrays, and even more, there is a magic circle that can perfectly adjust the movement of the machine beast, making it indistinguishable from a demon. With these two terrifying opponents, Zhang Zhigzun is locked in the top 3. Boom boom boom. The two machine unicorns went berserk, and all kinds of mysterious attacks came overwhelmingly. The impact of water and fire from the two machine beasts swept directly into Lugobin's eyes, while Zhang Zhigzun was hiding behind the machine beast and did not confront Lugobin head-on, preparing for the opportunity to give Lugobin a fatal blow. From beginning to end, Lugobin seemed to have not moved. At this moment, the war broke out. Her weak body was too small compared to the machine unicorn, and she was almost overwhelmed in an instant. Zhang Zhigzun couldn't help but let out a loud laugh and said, "I'm vulnerable to a single blow." He is proud, locked in the top 3, and is in a good mood. Everything is as he expected, therefore geniuses will definitely lock in the top 4. As for who is eliminated in the end, it depends on his true ability. Anyway, he is not afraid of Li Kahai. People were also frightened. On the one hand, they were worried that Lugobin would be seriously injured, but on the other hand, they wanted to see Lugobin's true face. At this moment of restlessness, Lugobin, who was surrounded and attacked by the two major organ kylons, seemed to be on the verge of collapse. Suddenly, something changed. Faintly, it could be seen that there seemed to be cold mist coming out of her eyes, and a pair of azure blue eyes. Her eyes were very bright, as if something was piercing through them. At that moment, Wu Yu guessed that it was Lugobin who had used the magical power. However, in the battle before her, she had never used the magical power at all. In an instant, Wu Yu was shocked. He suddenly saw that while Zhang Zhigzun was still laughing happily, his whole body was instantly covered by ice. His whole body instantly turned into an ice sculpture, and it was smashed down in the air. With a bang, the ice sculpture smashed the rock below. Not only Zhang Zhigzun, but also the two machine unicorns were instantly frozen by the ice sculptures. It turned out that they were still attacking violently. For a moment, they remained motionless, still with their teeth and claws, but the magic weapon array and the fire on them were extinguished. As if dead, it completely dimmed. The two terrifying machine beasts dimmed directly. It was not that they couldn't struggle out, but that they were completely unable to struggle. Even Zhang Zhigzun still maintained a stiff smile and followed death. As if the battle scene stopped instantly. Suddenly there was such a scene. This vast ancient battlefield could be said to be completely silent. People looked at all this in surprise and looked at each other. As time passed, they still didn't quite understand what happened. They thought Zhang Zhigzun could break through the ice sculpture quickly, but so far, there has been no movement at all. So what does this mean? Could it be as it said that Lugobin used a magical power to directly defeat Zhang Zhigzun? This shouldn't be possible, right? Until, Lugobin said to General Murong in an understatement, if the winner is not announced yet, he may not be able to hold on for long, and he will be completely dead. Her tone did not mean she was joking, but just as she said, Zhang Zhigzun and the machine beast were still completely unable to move. Wu Yu suddenly understood that Lugobin would still be angry. Zhang Zhigzun had completely annoyed her, otherwise she would not have used this method directly. Shenlong is so irritable. This chapter is not finished yet, please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. Before General Murong could move, General Yugu suddenly appeared in front of Zhang Zhigzun. His eyes were puzzled, and he looked at the ice sculpture. He seemed to have tried, but failed to open the ice sculpture. At this time, the crowd was already noisy and stunned. Was completely impressed by Luo Bin, just as Wu Yu expected. Luo Bin, the dark horse, even made him a little dim after fighting all the way here. Let him go. General Yugu looked at Luo Bin indifferently. This was his most beloved disciple and his only successor. Luo Bin said, the winner has been decided, but General Murong hasn't announced it yet. Now people can clearly see that Zhang Zhigzun's life and death are completely controlled by Luo Bin, and this is enough. General Murong was also stunned. At this time, he was also in a shocked mood. He didn't even know what tricks Luo Bin had used. It's just that Zhang Zhigzun was defeated. Such an upset made him a little uncomfortable. In fact, people still hope that the four geniuses can gather in the top four. In this battle, Luo Concubine wins. General Murong saw that it seemed impossible for Zhang Zhigzun to escape on his own, so he could only say helplessly. Luo Bin didn't bother and just released it. At this time, Zhang Zhigzun and the two big machine beasts woke up, but the two big machine beasts fell to the ground. Zhang Zhigzun also looked pale, and his whole body was frozen and stiff, struggling. It took a long time before he could finally move, but as soon as he could move, he wanted to control the machine beast again to attack Luo Bin. Nonsense, General Yugu was right in front of him. Naturally, he slapped Zhang Zhigzun and lifted him up. Now that his apprentice was defeated, he probably felt embarrassed, so he directly lifted up his disciple and his machine beast without even looking at it. Go back, leave here directly and go back to the inner city. It doesn't matter whether I win or lose, I still want to beat him. I want to be in the top 3. Wow, Zhang Zhigzun probably still didn't believe the outcome, so he was still yelling angrily when he left. But the more they yelled, the more people discovered that in fact, the so-called geniuses are not so strong inside. Once they suffer unimaginable failure, they may not have a good mentality. For a moment, the whole place was silent. Everyone looked at Luo Bai blankly, not knowing what to say. Unexpectedly, the first person to enter the top 4 was not the 4 geniuses, but a little known, not a genius, someone who was unwilling to be a genius. A strange woman with a real face. Luo Bin returned to her seat without saying anything else. Only when she saw Wu Yu did her eyes soften slightly. When Luo Bin behaved like this, Qin Fuyu seemed to have a much more serious attitude toward her. She stood with the other two and looked at Wu Yu and Luo Bin in silence. They had never thought about the differences between their groups. Some of them will be defeated. After this start, especially Li Kahai, I am afraid that the hostility will be even greater. In order to catch up with the progress, General Murong directly announced the start of the next battle. Therefore, Qin Fuyu had to go on stage and fight an old man. From this point of view, she and Murong Su are actually the strongest, and they have a smooth road. There is no suspense in this battle. In fact, this was the case. Both Qin Fuyu and Murong Su defeated their opponents, probably because their opponents were injured. This battle was even easier than the previous one. Both of them entered the top 4. So the top 4 include Luo Bai, Murong Su, and Qin Fuyu. The last spot was decided between Wu Yu and Li Kahai. This was pretty much what Wu Yu expected. If he can defeat Li Kahai, he will fight Murong Su in the next fight, while Luo Bin fights Qin Fuyu. Among the top 4, the one who lost 2 games in a row will be eliminated. However, it is also very possible that it is him, because Murong Su, Luo Bin, and Qin Fuyu are all stronger, and they are considered the 3 most powerful. Of course, All this is based on the premise that he can defeat Li Kahai. He is not a concubine. It is impossible to defeat Li Kahai so cleanly. At this time, General Murong announced, in the last battle of this round, the last place in the top 4 will be decided between Wu Yu and Li Kahai. Who can win? Friends will wait and see, whether it is Li Kahai or Wu Yu has a superb performance, everyone can watch it. At the beginning of the concubine, if Wu Yu can defeat Li Kahai, people seem to be able to accept it. Wu Yu and Li Kahai looked at each other. Li Kahai entered the ancient battlefield first, and Wu Yu was about to enter. Suddenly, the whole world seemed to shake. Suddenly, a powerful pressure fell from the sky. Countless cultivators were suppressed and smashed to the ground. It's like it's raining from the sky, and all it's raining are monks. This scene is like the end of the world. Wu Yu looked up and saw that above the endless clouds and mist, there seemed to be a huge black beast, extremely long, descending on the Yanhuang Emperor city. /U003 cent /U003 C/Sente